Hello everybody, Kelly Rice here, but I write under my pen name KM Rice. And welcome to my author vlog. I guess I'd call it an author vlog because I'm an author and I'm vlogging. But I recently did an online poll on my social media and I got more than 60 responses. Thank you guys so much for giving me your feedback. And the poll was asking what content you would like to see from me, because I was toying with the idea of starting, a traditional written blog. But overwhelmingly, the answer, the resounding cry from the wildlings was to do more vlog episodes on any topic. In fact, the response that finished last was more writing advice. Now, I know that that's not necessarily 100% true across this particular avenue of YouTube, because I know several of you have actually found this vlog because you were looking for writing advice. But that is kind of what I've been doing this year anyway. I've been branching out into new topics, and today is no exception. Now, please remember that this vlog is brought to you by my wonderful patrons on Patreon. Thank you so very much for your generous donations every month. And if you would like to jump in and support them and get some really weird rewards, funny, hopefully, and sometimes insightful, then please visit the link in the description and join the fun. And I was actually toying with the idea of adding another tier, like a more expensive one. I ate a 5 milligram edible the other night. And which is like, if you don't know anything about edibles, that's like literally as low as you can go. And I decided I was hilarious, and I filmed a video like sharing my thoughts on everything, and I was like, this is the funniest thing ever. And it was like over 7 minutes, and the next morning I was too afraid to watch it. So I sent it to one of my friends and she found it highly amusing. But yeah, there you go. There's another poll for you. Would you pay for that? All right. Now on to today's topic, which is kind of a word I don't like, branding. I don't like that word because it sounds austere and very economically driven. But this is an essential part of being a creator and an artist. Speaking of artists, I was thinking the other day, why is it that people who write their own music and songs are considered artists? People who paint and practice those fine arts are considered artists. But why aren't writers considered artists? We're just writers. And what we do is just as much artwork as a painting. We're painting with words. So I thought that was an interesting quirk of the way that we use our language. But branding is absolutely essential if you are going to attempt to make it as an independent creative, because you need to stand out from the crowd and you need to be easily recognizable. This harkens back to a conversation I had, I'd say it was in 2015, with the founder and CEO and 5-time Oscar winner of What a Workshop, named Richard Taylor, and one of his artists. And we were having a chat about, she was trying to put together a book, and so she wanted me in on the conversation just to give some, input. And what I loved about this conversation was it was after hours at work, and it really felt like I was back sitting in one of my professor's offices, and we were just, we're all tired, but we felt like we were really creating something and coming to some good conclusions, because what we realized is to make it as an artist or a creator in today's world and to be able to sell your own stuff, you do have to look at yourself as a brand. That's really awkward, especially for us authors, because so many of us would rather be hidden away and not have ourselves out there. I've talked in the past on this vlog about my instinct to write and be hidden and hide behind my books, and how doing things like the web series Happy Hobbit and having that go viral kind of took that from me. I felt for a long time like it was taken, my anonymity online was taken from me. But that said, I slowly started to I wanted to say inkle, but I know that's not really the right verb. But I slowly started to slip into embracing the fact that this is out there, This is associated with me. Everyone has to freaking look at this, even if I don't have to. And I have to use this to promote that. So, you may not be in the same position. If you haven't previously been out there in a successful web series, you don't have to worry about your own visage so much, but you do need to come up with some form of branding for yourself. I'm not saying my branding is all my face, but if you look at the KM Rice logo, traditionally it is my face. It's my eyes, and in one eye is a purple nebulae, and in the other eye is a tall ship. Harkens back to a book that hasn't even yet been released. So I liked that image because I felt it represented me, because to me it says imagination. You know, you're seeing the world, and that's the quote I wrote to go with it. See the world for all that it is and all that it could be. And I feel like that's what we do as writers. So definitely focus on who you are, what makes you you, why are you writing, why are you creating, what makes you different from everyone else, and what are you bringing to the world? What is it that you want to share with the world? And make sure that however you decide to brand yourself is authentic to that message, and that message is authentic to you. Don't look at what's popular right now. Don't look at what's trending, because if you do that, you're just going to be riding other people's coattails, and it will fizzle out, and you will find that you will no longer have the momentum to keep that up, because it's not coming from a place that is the deep heart of you. And that's where I think all creativity and the magic of the arts comes from. So it's important for your branding to be reflective of that, and to be fun in a way. Now, marketing is a completely different subject, and I should get into that at some point. I'm only just starting to delve into it myself, but it is something that can be very fun and can be creative, and your branding should be fun and should be creative. If it feels like excruciating work, then you are probably fighting against some internal part of yourself, and you need to listen to that voice, that resistant voice. Find a happy compromise. I realize my bun is hitting my little starlights. Find a happy compromise that still feels like you, and yet can make you comfortable with the image that you're projecting into the world as your brand. Now, I'm not saying you have to choose one thing. You don't have to say, I am on a plush white couch with fuzzy pillows looking sultry because I write romance. Like, you don't have to pick one particular genre or anything like that, but like I said, figure out what makes you you and stick with it. For me personally, I realized, I've written young adult, I've written middle grade, I've written children's. Not all these books are out yet, but that's what I write. I write adult. Which I guess is just general fiction. We don't really have adult fiction, unless that sounds like porn. But, so I realized though, with every different genre that I write, horror, fantasy, science fiction, historical fiction, there's always a touch of whimsy. Even in my historical fiction piece, The Wild Frontier, in which there is no traditional magic or anything fantastical or magical realism, there is still a touch of soulful whimsy in there, because that is a perpetual muse for me. And once I identified that, it helped me move forward, and that's part of what helped inform the image that I ended up creating along with my sister, that the image of like seeing the different parts of the world through your eyes, to express imagination. So once you kind of nail that down, the editor in my head is like, oh my god, you suck. But once you figure out what that uniqueness is that makes you you, and before you try to doubt that you have it, I will tell you right now, you have it. You absolutely have it. I don't even have to know who you are or anything about you. I can tell you right now you have it. And that's because you were the only person of you to have ever existed and who will ever exist. You are literally the only you. There is something about you that is intrinsically original. And do some soul searching, do some meditation, go on some long walks, look at what you've written and see what's the common thread here. And you might be surprised. And it is fascinating once you start down that path to be like, why am I writing about this? Because I often feel like I keep writing the same story over and over again. And I'm like, what is my psyche trying to work out? So, ooh, a hawk, a big hawk. Either a red tail or red shoulder. I don't call that ADD, I call that paying attention to the world. Yes, I just revealed that I have a few bullet points written on a piece of paper. I think you're thanking me for that, because if not, this might be way more wandering than it normally is. So now I'm going to unabashedly look at my piece of paper. Alright, so the next bullet point I have. When I first self-published Darkling, which was back in 2013, the atmosphere of the self-pub world was shifting. It had gone from something so taboo that you didn't even want to have a few paragraphs of your novel available on your website, to something that was actually growing in respect and something you could make money doing. And that shift of, what's the word I'm looking for here? Not that it became more palatable, but that shift in the dynamic of the publishing world that made it a viable source of income, and it took away the stigma of, oh, you just couldn't make it, or you paid for this to be published, the whole vanity press thing. Because in the past, really small publishing and self-publishing was vanity presses. This time, no, your book's not being vetted by professional editors and publishers unless you choose to hire them. But instead it's being vetted by the general public. And the general public they can be harsh. It doesn't mean just because a book's out there, it doesn't mean it's bad. And the great thing with ebooks, and even print books now, is that it isn't set in stone. And if you find that you want to change your book and put out a different release, you can do that. Of course, I always encourage people to have put their best foot forward and be as professional as possible, but through the magic of modern technology, if you're like, there's a big fat typo there that I somehow missed, and that my editors missed, and that everyone who read it missed, and I just saw it. That's my horrible typo face, apparently. Then, through the magic of modern technology, you can fix it, and everyone who buys your book from that point onward will be none the wiser. So that's a cool thing about self-publishing. But anyway, when I self-published Darkling, I was heavily advised by my friends who were traditionally published to choose a pen name and to never write under my actual name. There are some horror stories out there. For example, I think she was a romance author writing under the name of Adele. If you guys have heard this story, maybe you'll leave a better version of it in the comments, or a link to a newspaper article or something. A news article, because nobody reads papers anymore, unfortunately. I don't know why it's unfortunate, because it's saving trees, but it's nice to have tactile paper, and I don't know, it reminds me of my dad. But anyway, there was a writer named Adele who got a lawsuit filed against her by the singer Adele, who said that she was infringing upon her brand and profiting from it. Now, this other Adele had been writing books under her own name, which was Adele, for years. So no, she wasn't. But you can get into strange situations like that. If you have a fictitious pen name, you can actually sell books on that alone. Especially, I know in the romance community, a lot of women, well, I shouldn't say women, men write romance too. A lot of authors will change their name to something more exotic, because that's part of the allure, that's part of the fun of that genre. So I think George R.R. Martin, fantasy, he did that as well. He doesn't have an extra R in his middle name. He just wanted to be like his idol, J.R.R. Tolkien. I'm very excited to see the Tolkien movie coming out soon. Actually, by the time I post this, it will be out. So I chose a pen name that I'd been using ever since I started writing seriously, which was in college, and it's just my initials. And I chose my initials because I wanted to be like H.G. Wells, who shares my birthday, and I wanted to be like J.K. Rowling, And there was a lot of research at the time explaining that if you're writing middle grade or writing for younger audience, little boys are far less likely to pick up a book written by a woman, especially about a female, than little girls. So I thought, I'll just be like the classic authors and I'll just only write under my initials. And that way they won't know my gender. It's so smart. And then I put my author photo on the back of the book. So as soon as someone goes, who wrote this? It's a woman. No tricks there. But that's all right. I'm fine with people knowing that I'm female. I'm not trying to hide behind a male name. But if people don't dig too deeply and I have a chance to skirt under that potential bias, then heck yeah, I'm going to take that chance. So that is something to consider, along with obviously your branding, is your pen name, if you're a writer, is going to basically be your brand. So I consider KM Rice my brand. That sounds really pretentious, but it helps to think of it that way. And through that, once you define what that is, you will find an avenue for your social media, and you want to make sure that you are consistent and cohesive across platforms and that everything is on brand. Now, I was approached by a management company a couple years ago, and one of the services that they wanted to offer to manage me was to completely take over my social media, and they wanted to do all of the posting for me to make sure everything was on brand. I thought that was really cool, but at the same time, I knew from my previous success with the web show Happy Hobbit, like what people respond to the most is authenticity. So, like, for me at least, that's where apparently my strength lies, in just not trying to put on too many airs. Of course, I put on some airs. I've got makeup on. Does that count as an air? I don't know. I've got deodorant on, so the air around me smells a little nicer, but you know what I mean? Like, I'm just a dork, and I'm just being a dork rather than trying to tell you that, rather than, I suppose, this goes back to what I started talking about at the very beginning. Rather than thinking, God, who would I love KM Rice to be, and only projecting that image. That's why you'll see I put up pictures without makeup. I put up pictures of my dog. I put up pictures of feet. Like, okay, not just like anyone's feet, but I don't know. I know I put up a picture of my feet at least once. But my point is, for me, I have discovered that despite what my preconceptions were, which were that, like, nobody wants to see this, like, I don't want to use this, I want to use just my words, I had to come to that compromise within myself of what feels okay with me and what works. And I know that being authentic, just letting my personality come through, works. Holy shit, I'm sorry, I'm cursing. There's a birdhouse that's been hanging on this birch tree, and I have not known if anyone occupied it for a long time, and someone just tried to come in. They look a little too big. I don't know if they're actually living there, if they were just scoping it out. Whew. That was exciting, guys. Whew. They're just sitting on a branch next to the house. This is almost as exciting as when I saw the little titmouse, which is a type of bird, a songbird, and here she was scavenging the twine I left out and ripping it apart and using it as nesting material. Exciting times. This is what I mean, I guess. I'm just, well, how do I describe myself? Nature and adventure loving author? Author and screenwriter. I should know this. I guess I'm an author. But nature and adventure loving screenwriter and author. There you go. So most of the stuff that I'm posting on my social media is oriented around those things. Of course, I'm sharing stuff about my books and the occasional, post about something completely different or something funny that happened or whatever. But usually that's what you can find. Now, most of this stuff doesn't directly have to do with what I'm writing, but it tangentially does, because what we love and what we share finds its way into our writing. And people have remarked that nature always plays a big role in my books. And that's because it plays a huge role in my life. So that's where that that link to your core identity comes into play. And so when I'm saying be cohesive across platforms, when I'm saying be on brand, what I'm really saying is be true to yourself and your image that you want to project to the world. And definitely have some boundaries, because you have to keep a part of yourself private, and part of yourself will always be private. Choose what you want to share and who you want to share. And go from there. And you can keep it to whatever you're comfortable with. If you don't ever want someone to see your dog, don't show your dog. If you don't ever want anyone to have any details at all of where you live in the world, don't share it. So these are all decisions that you have to make, but do be aware that it's good to make them at some points, so that you set your own boundaries. You can change those boundaries at any time, but once you enter the world of public figure, you might be surprised at the lengths some people will go to try to impress you, or I guess impress is the right word, show off, or be creepy. So for those reasons, it is important to consider, I guess I'll say safety, but more importantly, what are you comfortable sharing? So that is my advice, at least my preliminary advice on branding. And getting down to like the actual, the actionable things that you can do would definitely be coming up with some sort of imagery or logo that people will associate with you. I am hesitant to ever remove my camera thing from any of my social media. I get scared even when I change like my display picture on my author page, because I'm like, well, people need instant recognition of who you are, what you're doing, who's this coming from. So because we live in a world where it's fast paced and you're on your phone and you're scrolling and you want that instantaneous connection, you don't want to make people have to work, because when they have to work, then they become a little less engaged. Unless you mystify them and they come to you to be like, what's going on here? What's all this about? Then that's a different way to get attention to your platform. But oh my gosh, the bird is perched. He's perched outside the house, or she, it. Is it gonna go in? Is it going? What is he doing? He's trying to. Oh, he might be after the twine. I think he's also trying to take apart the twine, but it's the twine that's tying the birdhouse to the tree. This is not gonna end well. I hope someone doesn't live in there and he's not like killing his neighbor. Okay, anyway, enough distractions. I hope this was informative for you. I'm gonna sign off with a really cool thing that I made out of a big piece of oak bark. Here's the back. See, just a big chunk of oak. And here's the front. Check it out, it's a hobbit house. The hobbit has a rock stone fence, very nice garden, pine cone collection, and a chimney. So I really enjoyed looking at that hobbit house. But there's a chance I might put it up for sale. I don't know, I haven't quite decided yet, because beautiful things belong in the world. That's not really a quote, like I just made that up and I don't even know if it makes sense, but that's the kind of thing that like goes viral on like Tumblr. I don't tumble much anymore. So with that, I bid you all a very fond, me and my hobbit house, bid you all a very fond farewell.